welcome back to my channel. How are you guys been doing? I hope you're doing well, and I hope you guys have been able to enjoy the last bits of summer while we have it. I know here in Ontario it has been swelteringly hot here, with temperatures well above 40 degrees Celsius, especially when you include the humidity. So it has been very sticky and very hot. However, if you've been following my channel, you know that I've been playing a few games here and there among taking care of my girls and my family and work. And the game I've been sort of dabbling a little bit, and only a couple hours in, is The Witcher 3. And as I said before, it's a really good game thus far that I've played it. But one of the things about The Witcher 3 is that it has a lot of DLC as well. And one DLC pack in particular that I'm very much looking forward to, and that is the Blood and Wine DLC. Now, this got me thinking about the concept of DLC and expansion packs and season passes, and what my thoughts are on that. And I realized I haven't really talked too much about it. And so I thought I would do that now. So to go back in the past, right? DLC and season passes and expansion packs started to catch on back in the mid-'80s, and they really took off in the '90s, in particular with PC gaming. So things like Doom, or things with Warcraft, for example, right? They had DLC put out. I remember even in the late part of the 1990s, I remember Roller Coaster Tycoon having a whole host of different DLC packs that came with it, or extension packs, if you will, that you would buy in the store. And that continued right up to this very day. And I actually got my start on this idea and concept of DLC packs or expansion packs from things like The Sims, right? This is The Sims 3 Supernatural, but this is something that has been a staple from very early ages when I was a kid, how things used to be expanded to expand gameplay. Zoo Tycoon 2, another similar thing where you have an expansion of the gameplay. And of course, this idea of extension packs and DLCs was so that if you love the game, that there would be a continuation of the story with extra characters and extra content and perhaps extra gear or stuff. But it was mainly meant to sort of expand the story. And if you love the original story, you're going to love this extension of it, or put extra side quests and things into the game, which made it very worth its money, and in part because back then most internet connections were awful and it was just starting. Many people were on dial-up. So you had to go out and buy physical copies of these things, which meant they had to be pretty well thought out when you bought them. Now, back when I was a kid, as a young kid, I remember we didn't have a good computer, and we had the worst internet ever. So we didn't play very many computer games. The one that comes to mind, besides Solitaire, was Commander Keen. And that was a really fun game. It was on a floppy disk. Now that just shows you how old school this is. And again, this game had to be pretty much great from the get-go, or if there's any mistakes, that's the way it was. There was none of this fixing it through patches and stuff like we have today. The similar things we're seeing when I got my first console. Like my first console was the Nintendo 64, right? So when they released a game, very few games, actually none in this era, even the PlayStation 1 and 2, you didn't get DLC. You got whatever was on your cart or your disc was it. There was nothing else added to it. And it had to be complete. If it wasn't, then you're stuck with all the bugs and fixes. So it wasn't really this idea of DLC jumping to consoles, at least. Not until the PlayStation 3 going into the Xbox 360, where you get this idea of adding extra content that you can download from the internet. And that's also around the time that many people's internet connections were better, we're getting better download speeds and so on. So it became more feasible that way. And then you get up all the way to today where almost most games nowadays have some type of expansion pass, season pass, or DLC. So what is my take on DLC? because I grew up with it, I'm okay with adding expansions. I'm okay with adding more to the story once you beat the main storyline, and saying there's a whole new area now that you can explore that we're going to give you with extra content and so much. I'm fine with that. Especially if you enjoy the game, I think that's okay. That's fine. What I'm not okay with is DLC that's mainly just stuff packs. So unfortunately, I'm going to pick on The Sims 4 for this. Sims 3 had it as well, but there's a lot of these stuff packs where you just bought stuff, different clothing, furniture. Similar things you see in other games like, Call of Duty or, Star Wars, Battlefront, right? I remember that when that came out. There was a lot of this, you can buy weapons and just suits and things. I'm not into that. I don't care to buy all this fancy gear or fancy clothing. I know sometimes the gear can actually make you have better perks and things and a better shot and things, but for the most part, I'm not that interested in that. So that kind of DLC crap I don't care for. I like to expand the story, different modes of gameplay, etc. So I'm not a fan of just sort of stuff. If the stuff is included with expanding to the world, then fine. But on that zone, I don't care. Another type of DLC that I absolutely detest, and I think it is one of the worst types out there, is when the developers, when they're developing a game, already have in mind DLC. So the moment they're making their game, they're already thinking about how can I milk this further, and then they produce season passes and areas that were already in the game. And this happens a lot with releases, where you get a day one release and there's a day one DLC that can come with it that you can purchase, or a season pass for the future. I hate that, because what that suggests, at least to me, this is just to me, in my opinion, it suggests that the developers already knew that they were going to have this area, right? It wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't like, the game's been out for a year and a bit, people love it, it was a success. Let's add some more content for these people who enjoyed it. That's not what, it doesn't scream that. What it screams is, oh, we already thought of a way to get more money from you, as if $80 or in some cases $90 Canadian isn't enough to pay out for the initial game. Let's take another $60, another $90 off of you so that we can give you the season pass and extra DLC. I hate that, because it suggests to me that the game wasn't finished, right? You gave us half a game or half the experience. And there have been some games that I either I haven't played yet or I've heard where some of the story is behind a paywall. It's already there, or the ending. You have to pay for it. I hate that. That is awful. An awful idea. The other thing I don't like about this whole idea of DLC is it adds things that should have been there in the beginning, right? Game modes. Oh, I'm going to give you now, you buy the base game, just the campaign, but let's say it's a type of game where it's very famous for its online community or its online multiplayer. Oh, we're not going to give that to you. We're going to wait and release it as a DLC that you have to now purchase for. I think that's ridiculous. That stuff adds patches to gameplay that should have already been fixed. I don't like how some developers are using DLC as a way to fix games as well. I hate that. That have already been released that aren't very good. I don't like that. The other thing that I don't like about DLC is it's a great excuse to again, not only milk your money, but to artificially inflate and keep the game running and keep the player base there. And I know it's a model that works well, for example, with MMORPGs, but that it needs to stay fresh, to keep the player base there. In an ordinary video game, you don't need it. I mean, The Witcher's done a good job with its DLC, but there are many out there games that are not. They don't do a good job with this. And that's a problem. The other thing is that I'm the kind of person, and this is funny, because nowadays, as I said, so many games have this extra content that come on either day one or a year later. When I play a game, and I buy it, let's say I bought The Witcher 3 day one, just came out, I bought it. I play through it, and I love it. Then the DLC comes out. I now have to go back, but I don't have a lot of time to go back and replay stuff. So what I end up doing with especially RPGs nowadays is I wait at least a year, or a game franchise I know I like, and wait until they release all of those DLCs so I can replay the entire thing in its entirety for the first time, not having to go back, because I don't have endless time. Once I finish a game, and I think I've talked about this before, it's done. Unless there's there's a few occasions like Mario 64 or something where I will go back and replay it. But once I beat a game, it's not over. I don't rarely think about it again. If there is DLC that comes out, I go, do I play it? Yes or no? It's optional content. I already got my money's worth already. I enjoy what I played. Do I have the time? And it just kind of sits, and maybe I get to it, maybe I don't. But then that's the other problem too, is because this is all digital, these DLC, obviously it's downloadable content, but it's digital. If the servers don't run in 10 years and I don't get around to playing the DLC or download it, then I might not be able to experience that ever again. So that's another problem that I have with it. So it almost forces you to buy it if you're ever interested. Even if you don't get to it now, but you come back to it later, it forces you to do so. Almost, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? With this downloadable stuff that is released by these companies, these gaming companies. So overall, my thoughts on downloadable content, extension passes, and so on, I'm all for it, so long as it extends the gameplay, it adds an extra story mission that wasn't just tacked on day one because they knew you were going to pay for it to add extra content to it, or that it was a half-baked game, so they are adding that extra area that they already had made, but they just put it behind a paywall. I don't like that. But if it's an actual true extension of the game play's awesome, the base game's great, it's an extension of that, add some extra cool stuff, I'm for that. I'm not for all the other stuff that seemingly has become DLC these days. So I want more of the type of The Witcher 3 DLC, and not like the Halo type DLC or some of those stuff packs from The Sims. I don't want those. I want good DLC. And I think the industry would be far more rewarded by the consumers and gamers in the gaming community if they did that. They put quality content, complete a good game, make a good base game, complete it. Then a year, 6 months, whatever, after the player base has played through a good chunk of the game or all of it, then you release some extra content that goes above and beyond the base game that you had already made that was pretty good as it was. That's the point of DLC. That's what it was originally intended for back when it was released in the 90s and the early 80s, right? That's what it was for. But this new ideas of DLC in the modern era is very different, and I hope it goes back to the original concept of DLC and get rid of all that other crap that we're dealing with nowadays. So yeah, so that's my ramblings on that. I appreciate you watching if you stuck this far. I know it's a little bit all over the place a little here, but I'm very passionate about gaming and other types of things like science and gardening. But it bothers me when the video game companies do this type of stuff, because I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm not anybody big or anything on YouTube. I'm just an ordinary guy, and I have to, I think, comment for the rest of us who are just ordinary people out here who are enjoying video games. So with that, guys, I hope you all are doing well, and I hope you all stay safe and are enjoying the rest of your summer. So with that, guys, take care, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.